G'day everyone, it's Doctor Colin here with another review video about Suicide Squad. So this is part 2 of the Suicide Squad review, and this is where things are going to get spoilerific.
Dumbledore dies.
If you've seen Suicide Squad already and you're looking for validation on your opinion, this is the kind of video that you would go to find that out. If you haven't seen the movie yet and clearly have no regard for your surprise factor when going to see it, if you do decide to go and see it, this is also the video for you. So if you want just like a general kind of review of the film, check out the first video. This one is purely for those in the know, and it gives us an opportunity to talk about the film in a little bit more depth. We gave our scores for the film in the last part of the podcast, which was Pcardi gave it a 7, Freakster gave it an 8, and Crybabe and I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 skulls, because we generally enjoyed the movie. We talked a little bit about some of the characters we enjoyed and whatnot, and I think this is a good time to sort of talk a bit more about the characters specifically. So for me, I'll talk about the characters that really stood out for me. The first one that really stood out was Amanda Waller, as played by Viola Davis, who the more that the movie went on, the more it felt as though she was absolutely the perfect person for the role, because she had that real tough exterior, and you could sort of sense that there was always this kind of like mental chess game going on, where she was always looking for the weaknesses in the people around her and trying to make sure that she had all her contingencies worked out and stuff. And she was kind of, you know, in a sense, she was almost like Batman, but like the inverse of Batman in some regard, because she was using like the bad as a means to a good end, as opposed to, you know, Batman, who tends to try and avoid all that nasty stuff if he can. And that's why it was really awesome when there was that moment where she and Bruce Wayne are having that sort of quasi tete-a-tete in the restaurant in the end credits, because you do see that they're kind of 2 pages from the same book, but with slight variations. But because she was such a badass, because she was so intelligent and tough, she was a really, really well written and performed character. Viola Davis absolutely nailed the part. And considering that originally there was discussions that it was going to be Oprah Winfrey playing that part, I think they made the right choice.
Yeah, I don't want to see you get killed, and you get killed, and you get killed, and have Tom Cruise jumping on a couch behind her.
So, Pcardi, Amanda Waller was one of the characters that really stood out for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, I kind of find it interesting, the back and forth that she has with Batman in the cartoon series. At least I haven't seen her much in the comics, but yeah, I like the how they're trying to one up each other with badassiness all the time, and I think it kind of worked with this. But she's like also. It sort of shows you that, yeah, while she's meant to be one of the good guys, she is pretty much not a good person. She's meaning it in goodwill, but isn't anyone who's like usually the most like the evil people usually doing it with some sort of good intention in it sometimes?
Yeah, like that whole notion that the most evil people performing the most evil deeds actually think that they're doing good.
Yeah.
And that's
that's what I mean. The people who were evil, meant to be evil in this, they actually knew they were bad guys, but they were still doing it, while the people who were meant to be the good guys were doing evil things. Yeah, she was the one who actually was one of the people who actually got the situation that they had to solve to happen.
So, Freakster and Crybabe, what were your sort of thoughts about Amanda Waller as a character? Did she really stand out to you at all?
I did like her. I thought she was a good, strong character, and I think she did well with what she was trying to portray. Because she was trying to show herself as like a mean person, also being she was supposed to be the good guy, but she also portrayed herself as someone who you wouldn't mess with.
9 times out of 10, if they've got a character in a movie, especially a genre film, where the female character at some point wields a weapon or punches someone, they'll come out in all the press conferences and be like, she's a really good, strong female character. And that's the only extent to which they seem to gauge it. There's no real emotional complexity or anything like that. But with this, it seemed like there wasn't really a lot of talk about Amanda Waller being a good, strong female character, but that is exactly what she is, because you see this is a person who is very self-assured and can take care of themselves and take care of business, and
get her hands dirty.
Yeah, and she's not afraid to do what needs to be done.
But it also shows that she's actually not a good character too.
So the other character that really surprised me, it didn't, but was Captain Boomerang, played by Jai Courtney. Because I had the feeling that he was going to be sort of one of those really surprising characters when I was watching all the promos and stuff. Because Captain Boomerang is always a character I've enjoyed watching in the various media that he's been introduced. And
he plays a good arsehole.
Yeah, well, the key thing with Boomerang is that he's supposed to be a real weasel, I guess. And, he says inappropriate things to people, and he's got kind of the tact of a 3-year-old. And we see a great moment of that when they're first sort of all introduced to get it together, and he turns to El Diablo and is like, "What's all that on your face? Does it wash off?" And you get all these little weird moments of, like, he's got the fetish for pink unicorns, and he's always drinking a beer and that kind of thing. And he manages to convince Slipknot to try and escape. I think just as a way of testing whether or not
he can get out or not.
Yeah. And that stuff was really awesome to see. And this is probably the first time I've seen Jai Courtney play a role where he seemed to A, enjoy it, and B, actually do a good job. And the sad thing is that it seems like a lot of his stuff was cut. Like, there's no real sort of connective tissue to his moments, because there's one bit where he realizes that he can escape because Rick Flag smashes the control for the detonators in their necks, and he piss bolts out of the bar, and then he's back, for
no reason whatsoever.
So
there was a reason, because he's Captain Boomerang. Boomerang's come back.
Alright, so what did you guys think of Captain Boomerang?
Most times I've seen Captain Boomerang in an animated thing, it seems like he's there just as much as he's usually there. He's like sort of a background character, kind of. Like, he's not the main character, he's just there doing stuff.
Sort of almost like comic relief sometimes as well.
Yeah.
I only like the fact that we saw that Captain Boomerang isn't just anyone's nemesis. He's the Flash's nemesis.
Yes.
Yeah, I liked showing that he was the Flash's main villain.
That was good.
Oh, not main villain, but
yeah. We'll get to we'll come back to the cameos, because that's something that is worth talking about as well. All right, so they're sort of the two standout characters for me, other than Harley Quinn, but I'll leave that to you guys.
I want to talk about Harley Quinn.
So, in that case, why don't we hand it over to you, Crybabe? You can tell us what your thoughts were on Harley Quinn. What was that made her sort of like come to life for you?
Well, the best scene that I had that was with Harley Quinn was when she was sad, actually. Mm-hmm. So after she thought that the Joker had died, which is who she basically went crazy for, like literally jumped in acid and everything for. So when she thought that he was dead, she sort of like broke down and just sat there and cried. And then when the other people came out, she was all like happy again, but you could tell that she was upset, even though she was acting happy. And I thought that showed that, she's human, and I liked that. I thought it was really good.
The thing that I really liked about that moment as well is that it kind of shows that the character is very self-aware. Like, she kind of knows how she's sort of meant to act as a crazy person, and that to some degree that over-the-top personality is part of an act. Obviously she's got some psychosis, and she's got abilities which are far beyond the average person, but that perhaps her clownishness actually comes from a projected identity as opposed to her core identity within herself. Was there anything that stood out to you, Pcardi and Freakster, about Harley Quinn?
The whole scene where she's going into the acid. I just remember, I can't remember exactly, but I just know a lot of people comment that they changed it up so in the story for the new version, Joker actually pushed her into the acid more than letting her have a choice, even though the choice was never really hers to begin with because of what the Joker did to her. It still was her choice, kinda, to jump in the acid in the movie, while in the comics, I think she didn't have a choice.
Yeah, because that was part of the whole retcon thing that they did with the New 52.
Yeah.
Where they reimagined the origin stories of a few of the characters, including Harley Quinn. And they wanted to make her a little bit more like the Joker, and so they went, well, how are we going to get her to have like the bleached skin and all that sort of stuff? And so they have the Joker throw her into the chemicals against her will, and then eventually she just, after he sticks her in a rocket and fires her off into the sky, and she crashes somewhere in Gotham and is rescued by Poison Ivy, she goes, not really into the Joker anymore. And that's sort of her agency, is that she suddenly realises that this man who has psychologically abused and emotionally abused her and disfigured her and treated her like crap might not be good for her.
Yeah.
But we don't really get that in Suicide Squad, but we do, in a sense, have a sense of her as a strong-willed person, that she does have a bit more agency over whether she literally takes that dive for the Joker than whether she decides to sort of walk away from it. One of the things that I think will probably stand out to some people is that this is a very sexualized version of Harley Quinn. We get a very aggressively sexual characterization, which is much more in keeping with the Suicide Squad comics from the New 52 than it is with the classical depiction of Harley Quinn from like the Paul Dini stories, and even her own spin-off comic from the New 52, where it sort of focuses more on her clownishness than it does on her sexuality. So it's almost, yeah, I think I described it before as it's like weaponized sexuality, where she is, in a sense, using that as a tactic to throw people off and to intimidate others.
She does it very well.
And I think a good example of that is when she teams up with the Joker to get that I think he's a drug dealer in the opening sort of sequences, where, you know, the guy's covered in tattoos and piercings and stuff, and he's made a couple of comments about Harley Quinn, and so Joker calls her over and she starts sort of getting all up in him, and he's like, no, I can't, it's your woman, and you know, it's all like, it's just a game to the Joker and Harley Quinn. You know, and they do play it a lot more like it's an actual love story, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
How does that sit with you guys?
Well, it kind of is with her and Joker, except I think in the comics, the early ones, that was basically a more one-sided relationship, where it's the Joker who's just manipulating her and stuff, and they're not, like, he doesn't really love her, he just loves you to stroke his own ego, and she's there for that, while she's just head over heels.
Yeah.
What? She's there to stroke his ego. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's all ego about the Joker. Like, the stuff with the Batman, it's to see how well he can go against the Batman and getting his attention and stuff, all to entertain himself and make himself look bigger.
And he's an incredibly vain character as well. And this is something that has been, I guess, overlooked in recent years, is that the Joker almost kind of preens over himself. He presents himself in a particular way. He's always traditionally portrayed in, you know, a very crisp zoot suit or a tuxedo, and he puts a lot of effort into the whole get-up of his capers and stuff, and I think that you know, that his whole possessiveness over Harley Quinn comes from that element of he needs someone that is going to sit there and tell him how wonderful he is and how brilliant he is, and they kind of lost that when they started going down the path of what eventuated in the Heath Ledger style Joker, where he is dishevelled, and he's very psychotic, and he doesn't have a lot of vanity, but he does have a lot of arrogance, in that he thinks he knows better than everyone else, but he doesn't present himself better than anyone else. So
he does have tailored suits, but they're just more dishevelled.
Well, actually, the funny thing is with Heath Ledger's costume, they crafted it in such a way that it would be unsettling. Things like they would make the coat lopsided, or they'd put the wrong number of buttons in and stuff like that. So it meant that he was very unsettling to look at, and the fact he always had that greasy, lank hair and all that sort of stuff tied in very closely with that idea of him being not someone who was particularly bothered with his appearance, but more...
But in this one, he's sort of more set, slick hair, all the suits and all that stuff again, sort of
Well, the fact that he's got all the tattoos and stuff apparently came from David Ayer, the director, was obsessed with Mexican cartels and stuff like that, and how they presented themselves. And, he wanted this Joker to be sort of more grounded in that crime reality. Also, people sort of made fun of the fact that the tattoos are very self-referential. Like, he's got damaged written across his head, and he's got all the ha-has on his chest and stuff like that.
The mouth on his hand.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, he's just like a try-hard emo kind of, oh, look how edgy I am. And I think that actually works in the favour of this interpretation, because he does sort of play up the idea of what he is. It's like he's very self-aware, and he's trying very consciously to portray an image. Harley kind of feeds into that as well, because it does come across that he's the king of Gotham and she's the queen of Gotham, and I think perhaps in a sense that self-referential element of his appearance, that preening, rubs off on Harley Quinn as well. The fact that she's always got diamonds in her tattoos or her costume somewhere, that she uses the two colours, whether it be red and black, or gold and black, or blue and pink. There's that kind of repetition of those patterns, because it's kind of like her trademark, which I think it comes across that kind of comes from her exposure to the Joker as well, that narcissism.
I did enjoy the how he was portrayed, but still, I got no two ways about it. The Joker is the Joker, I guess. I've seen all the different aspects of what they've done with the Joker, so just seeing a different version of the Joker was just...
Didn't do anything for you?
Not particularly.
How are your sort of feelings about the portrayal of Harley Quinn in the film?
The way she did it seemed fine, really. All the characters gelled well together. Even though they're all bad guys, I still like that particular scene where they're all like, oh crap, we have to save Flag, and you see that particular screen, that particular shot, that camera shot where they're all surrounding him, not giving a shit about the other soldiers, but just surrounding him to protect him from being taken by the I don't know what we call them, concrete heads?
The servants of the Enchantress.
Yeah.
There is a name that David Ayer gave to them, but it's along those lines.
Okay.
Well, that was something actually that was quite interesting, is that it actually happened a couple of times in the film that Rick Flag got overwhelmed by these minions, and...
They did briefly explain it. They said that...
Well, he was being targeted, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was being targeted because the witch was afraid of him because of the relationship between him and the host of the witch.
I do remember the second time he got sort of swamped, and Deadshot's like, oh, they've captured the Flag again. There's a lot of that.
Good.
Yeah. There's a lot of that wry humour in the film as well, which is good, and I think that's one of the things that was really good in keeping with, say, Assault on Arkham, where they obviously got a lot of the story beats from, which is that there was a lot of action, and there was a lot of focus on how the characters interacted with each other. And the humour sort of came organically from the portrayals of the characters, as opposed to them going, here's a joke, hey hey. it wasn't a funny movie. It was a fun film, but it wasn't a funny movie.
No.
You know, and I think as a result, we had a film that hit the right notes, not necessarily in the right order in some places. In terms of the story, I think probably that would be something that people would criticise, because it bounced around with a lot of flashbacks. And I think what impression I got was that the story itself was less to do with the plot. If they have to go in and they have to stop the Enchantress, and it had more to do with developing the characters and their individual kind of journeys.
I liked how they developed the characters at the start when they introduced them, but there was some flashbacks for the story that could have been done earlier or not at all.
Yeah. For me, that would be when they're in the building and Rick Flag's telling them about what happened when the Enchantress bolted.
Which they pretty much had already done.
Yeah.
When it actually happened. It just they added extra material that could have easily been told beforehand. It was just there to indicate that there's a bomb somewhere, really.
Yeah, we didn't know that she had a bomb too, though. It was just one scene of him going, "Oh, I love you." What's her face? June Moon or something. And then all of a sudden, like on the radio, talking to Amanda Waller, and it's just like she's bolted.
Yeah, there was no sort of lead into it.
Yeah.
And instead of having that flashback, they should have just had that whole sequence, and it wouldn't have made it any more of a revelation to the audience, because we'd already seen so much of that scene, and we knew that she had bolted, but the whole adding the bomb in there, that wouldn't have made it any more or less compelling for people, I would think, by that point, because we already knew that the stakes were really high, because the Enchantress had that bloody, lightning bolt coming out of the building with all the debris floating around it, and we're like, well, that seems like something that could potentially be dangerous. So, the need to throw a bomb in there as well, as though it was something new and exciting, really wasn't necessary. And I think,
I think all the rest of the flashbacks were good, though.
None of that origin stories for everyone. It was like, there was some origin story stuff.
There were some origin stories. There weren't origin stories to everyone, and
but it was telling a story of why they were in that position and stuff more than.
And it gave you an idea of what they stood to lose as well, because a big part of their involvement was the leverage that Amanda Waller had on them. You know, with Deadshot, the leverage was his girl. With Harley Quinn, it was the potential
his
of
daughter. Maybe say his daughter, because his girl could also mean his
girlfriend.
Right. Okay. I'll be more specific then. His biological offspring.
This is
of a cisgendered female variety.
Okay.
So that was Deadshot's thing. Harley Quinn's was all about being able to reunite with the Joker. We got a bit of a flashback, pun intended, with Captain Boomerang, which didn't really give us an idea of what he stood to lose, but it gave you an idea of the world that he came from, and a sense of what kind of a person he was, which is that he was more than willing to just turn on someone. The flashback's a cameo, and Freakster, I know that was the moment that you really enjoyed, because when you were sitting next to me in the cinema, you made a point of grabbing me on the arm to point out that was happening on the screen in front of us.
I can't believe that Batman could work 7 cities at once.
Yeah, I know. That was amazing. Holy shit. That guy knows how to micromanage up the wall.
He just zooms around like some sort of
Yeah, that's right. He used a bad guy ability to zoom around.
Nothing flashy.
Nothing flashy at all. He zoomed around, micromanaging all those 7 cities. That's right. Holy shit, man. Yeah, I like the fact that actually happened. That really flashy cameo. And the fact that he was in his suit.
And Batman pops up quite a few times throughout the film.
Yep.
At one point he beats the snot out of Deadshot and captures him. And then at another point he manages to jump on the roof of the Joker's car, which then runs off a bridge, and that's how he captures Harley Quinn, because she's gone through the windshield and she starts trying to get him with a knife and he punches her in the face.
That actually does show a bit about the Joker actually not really caring about her too, because
she said that she couldn't swim.
And then he just abandons her because he's not in a car.
I noticed the car sort of, he wasn't in it when Batman got there.
Mm-hmm.
But that could have been because he got thrown out of the vehicle as it was going over the bridge. I don't know. I didn't see well enough to be able to conclude clearly that that's the case. But
and even if he does abandon her, he still feels bad enough to try and save her. Exactly,
and that's sort of his whole. That's his whole reason for being in the movie, is that he wants to get Harley Quinn back, and that's where it ends, doesn't it? It ends with him succeeding in his mission. The one that we haven't really spoken about that I think was really a standout for you, Freakster, was El Diablo.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Freaking I'm sorry, but I'm on like a weird like kick right now where when I see like random, just I like seeing, at the moment I've got into this thing where I like seeing superpowered people. Like, they're not even superpowered, they're just, they're not even really embracing their power. And then that moment where El Diablo just embraces his power was just, it was great. I love that moment so much.
And he really was on a redemptive arc throughout the film.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, the scene where they're in the bar and he's telling his story. And that was actually a really emotional scene.
Which he had teary eyes and everything.
It took me by surprise.
It didn't work out too well for Deadshot and Harley Quinn too, because they both were shocked, and you're sitting there going, wait a minute, you kill people. Why are you shocked at the fact that he accidentally slightly murdered his entire family?
Well, I can see for Deadshot.
Well, because it was the children.
Yeah,
he was
but
shocked
that got
about the children, and she was shocked about the partner because she was really upset that her partner died, and like that was a big thing for her. And Deadshot was really like upset that he couldn't see his child, and his child is like his whole world.
Okay,
and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I killed my partner and children, and it's just like, whoa.
Because I kind of gathered that also Harley Quinn didn't like the fact that the children were killed as well.
Yeah,
because when he did, I forget who pointed out that the children were dead as well.
That would be Boomerang.
It was Boomerang.
He goes, what about the children? And Harley Quinn's like,
you murdered them too as well. And then that's when
she tried to get him to admit it.
She got all teary-eyed and angry about it. Yeah, so that was cool.
So those are some of our thoughts on the film, a little bit more in depth than what our overall review was. I think overall it was just a really enjoyable experience, and it would have been really nice if Warner Brothers hadn't required it to be chopped up quite so much.
The way that I always go into a film is I go into it thinking, you know what, this is going to be an enjoyable film. I don't care about what other people have said, whether it's going to be good, whether it's going to be bad. I go into the film thinking, this is going to be good, I'm going to enjoy it. And generally, that's how I feel when I come out as well, that I have enjoyed it. It's how I approach every film.
There's a great anecdote that I heard about a film producer, and anytime he saw a movie, he would clap at the end, even if it was an awful film, because he understood the amount of work that went into actually creating a film. From the pre-production, scripting and all that, to the post-production and actually distributing the film. It is a friggin' hard job to do, and the fact that a film can actually get made is in itself almost insurmountable for some people. And to have a film that's, people hang shit on it even if it's not a bad film, it's just part of this culture of not really caring too much about not only the people involved but the end product as a result of their hard work. Alright, so thank you very much everyone for tuning in and getting our thoughts, feelings and various quotables on Suicide Squad.
Potent potables.
It's an SNL reference here on Dr. Colin's channel.
I'm
There you
current. I'm with it.
Hit
Sure.
to the jive. Anyway,
Jive.
thank you very much to all of my subscribers and viewers for tuning in. Thank you very much to Pcardi, Freakster and Crybabe for joining me. That's a goodbye from me.
A good morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
A goodbye from them.
Good morning and good night.